Your signal. Okay, thank you. Just go call the Capital Improvements Planning Committee meeting to order. Let the record show it's January the 13th at 8:45 a.m.
And we got Dave Clausen online
That's right.
and us, and Elizabeth's on the way. She got tied up this morning, but she'll be here. So we'll go ahead and start.
Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, I'm on.
Hey, Dave.
Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, in front of you, you've got the minutes from the last meeting. That'd be the first order of business to approve those minutes.
Okay, I'll give, I know y'all had them in front of you, had a chance to look at them.
I have.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
okay, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Ross to approve. It's been seconded by the Vice Chairman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Okay, motion carries unanimous to approve the minutes as presented.
All right. We're here this morning really for one reason, and that's to talk about our EMS facilities plan. You all have seen that plan, and it's a 2017 plan survey that was done by Oakley Collier Architects. That plan is 3 years old, almost 4 years old now, and so going on 4 years old now, and so the numbers in that plan probably aren't correct anymore, but what needs to be done in that plan is still correct. And in our CIP, if you go in that stack of papers that I gave you, the long legal size papers, the colored papers, those are sort of a portion of our CIP. And you can see if you turn to the second page of those documents, down in middle of the project, it said debt issuance for project financing, and it's got Series 2020B limited obligation bonds. And then down below that, it's got Series 2023 limited obligation bonds.
Yes.
And it's got EMS facilities. And in the EMS facilities line, we've got $15,975,000 marked for EMS facilities in fiscal year 2023.
Right.
If you go to the next page, the last page of that deck, and look over there on the left, it says June of 24, June of 25, and June of 26. And then go across the top to where it says 2023 LOBs for EMS facilities. It's got 1.5, 1.4, 1.4 million in those three columns for those 3 years. Those are the debt service requirements that would be annual for that $15 million borrowing that we were going to do for EMS facilities. And so we had a plan, and we were working through the plan, and this was going to happen in 2023. And in the midst of all that, Kitty Hawk had talked to us some years ago, and they had been planning, and they've been working on building a fire station and a police station out on the bypass in Kitty Hawk, and asked us, did we want to be involved in that with an EMS station there? And at that time, Jenny we've got a GIS program that we can run and look at what it does to response times and that sort of thing. And Jenny came to the conclusion that, yeah, that would be a good idea. That would help us with response times, especially in Kitty Hawk Village, Kitty Hawk, back in Kitty Hawk Estate, or Kitty Hawk Landing back on the end of Kitty Hawk. And it would also help us in our north and south response with Kill Devil Hills by having something in between the Southern Shores station and the Kill Devil Hills station. So there were a number of benefits to doing that there. And so we said, yeah, we'd like to at least have a discussion about that. And so we got involved, and Jenny met with them as they were programming their building. And in that programming said, if we were going to do it, here's what we would need. And so on the top of your sheet there's a paper that says Cahoon and Caston. They were the architects that helped Kitty Hawk. And they went through and did some programming work for Kitty Hawk to try to help them understand what they needed, what their space needs were, and all that sort of thing. That was done in 2019, May of 2019. Recently, Kitty Hawk has come back to me and said, hey, looks like we're going to move forward with our program. Do you all still want to be in? And so we're at a point with Kitty Hawk, we've got to sort of make an in or out decision. We got to decide, are we in or are we out? We're past preliminary, we're past talking, we're past programming. And Jenny thinks that we need to be in. As we go through our facilities list, the top two priorities are the two that we're going to talk about. One is this project. This would be the second priority, and the first priority would be the replacement of Station 1, which is our Kill Devil Hill station, and I'll come to that one in just a minute. So with respect to the Kitty Hawk project, you can see all the thing, and I'm not going to go through the Cahoon-Casson report word for word, but when you flip over, I don't know, what is interesting to us is when you get over to the fire station, which is on the third or the fourth page of that. We aren't involved in the police station side. Actually, it might even be easier if you went to the next to the last page. And that's sort of the site plan for what they're going to do there. And you can see they've got the police station on one side of the property and a fire and EMS station on the other. And you can see that the fire and EMS station has room for expansion in the future. And so that's what they're planning. And we would share in the cost if we did this in the fire and EMS side and wouldn't have anything to do with what's going on in the police station side. The very last page is a floor plan of what would be proposed. And Jenny has looked at that, and that's satisfactory for our needs, and that would work for us there. And so that's what's being proposed. That's what we're discussing. And now you go back to the Cahoon-Casson report, and he's gone through and sort of tried to scope out costs. And you look down at the bottom of that page, and there's a chart down there, and it says total floor area 3,960 square feet. Does everybody see that?
No, where'd you go, Bobby?
I'm on the fourth page of the Cahoon-Casson report.
Okay, yeah, I was on the floor plan there.
Yeah.
3960, got it.
Yeah. So he went through, and the top part of that is he's got a low, medium, and high range of what he thought was the cost then. And if you use the high range of $175 a foot for a fire station, you come up with a $693,000 cost. If you split that cost up based on how much of that building we would use and how much of it we would share, then the EMS share of that cost would be about $386,400 using that high number. Now, these are 2017 numbers, so I asked Dave to take this and go back to Oakley Collier, who they do fire stations and have done them all around, and said, give us some 2021 numbers. And they said they think the cost now would be upwards of $200 a foot. And so, as you can see in the handwriting on your sheet, I took $200 a foot, $225 a foot, and $250 a foot to give you some idea of the range of costs. And as you can see, that if you use 250, which would be the highest that I did, that cost would go from like 693 to 990.
Where's your
Yeah,
number?
Bob.
Where's your numbers?
They're handwritten.
They're handwritten to the right.
Oh,
on
wait a
that
minute.
On
graph.
this page. It looks like that, Bob, down at the bottom.
Oh, okay, I got you,
Got
because I was doing some math on the back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I already did it.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm sorry, I ain't found that yet.
That's,
The
it's on,
fourth
it's on.
page.
the
Okay, got it,
fourth page
got it,
as well.
got it.
Okay.
I see it now.
So I took them out, and with our experience with costs, I mean, these are numbers picked out of the sky, and no bidding has been done. But I was trying to get some sense of scale as to what we were looking at to see how it would fit in what we're doing. And so that's what it came out to using those numbers. Oakley, I got 990. Oakley Collier said, you know, if you were really just trying to look for a back of the napkin, he said you should be looking at around $1 million, which is about where I am with that number. So that seems to be as good as we can think about without having some bids and some real numbers out there. And if you take that number down in the bottom where you did our EMS share at that 990, then our share of that's about 550. So that's what we're thinking at the moment it would cost us to get into that fire station if we wanted to do this. I've talked to Dave at some length about this.
Bobby,
about-
that's, I'm sorry, but that's an all-in number. That's buying the land, construction,
So the
everything.
Kitty Hawk already owns the land.
They already own.
Okay.
And so and mind you, we haven't gotten into the details with Kitty Hawk about who's going to do what or how is going to do it. Presumably, Kitty, we're going to say we're in, we'll pay for our share, and Kitty Hawk will build it and we'll pay them. Or, and if they borrow the money, then we'll pay them our part of the debt service, our little more than 50% of the debt service on our side of the building.
Gotcha.
For that, and we'll have to work that out. If they pay for it with cash, then we got to figure out what are we going to do with our share. We may pay for our share with cash, or how we would do that. And Dave and I and Kitty Hawk will figure that out as well.
So if we look at partnering with KDH and Kitty Hawk, that's going to drop that 15 million that we have in our CIP. I don't want to say substantially, but it'll drop.
You're ahead of me because that's where I'm headed. So
That's what, okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the key there is
I'm going to take
this would be a benefit to us because
well,
we were doing it all together and not having Kitty
there's
Hawk.
nowhere else
KDH.
we could get into a fire station
Right.
for $500,000 because we can't buy the land hardly for that
Right.
if it's in a location that makes sense for us. And so in terms of cost, this is a pretty good deal, assuming these numbers are right. And with our projects that we've been doing in recent times, our numbers at the start somehow don't ever come out the same as the numbers at the end. And so I'm giving you every possible caution that these are back of the napkin numbers based on whatever information we have. But we got to decide whether to tell them to get us in and get going with the plan and do this or not as they go forward. And so this is the best I can come up with. If you think $250 a foot's too low, we can go to 300 and use that as a number. But
So if we combine those, if we look at, for the sake of just talking, 600,000 for Kitty Hawk, and then what did we say for KDH?
well, I'm going to take you through that. Can we? I want to get any questions about Kitty Hawk. I've done a similar analysis of KDH.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we are. And so any questions or thoughts or anything about Kitty Hawk before I move to Kill Devil Hills? Okay.
It seems to make very good sense, given what we're seeing here, I think. I don't see
Oh, absolutely.
illogical steps
Yeah.
here.
All right, so go to the next page. There's only 2 pages with respect to Kill Devil Hills. And you've got sort of a rudimentary spreadsheet. I'm not good at it like Dave, but and on the back, you've got a photograph of an aerial. And so let's look at the aerial first. If you look at where the water tower is, that's the Kill Devil Hills complex there. It's kind of outlined in blue. And their current fire station is out on the bypass on the left side of that. And that's where they are now. If you look to the back, that big white square top roof building.
That's our EMS
That's our
station.
EMS station that needs to be replaced. It's a metal building and it's more than 30 years old and it's in terrible shape. And that needs to be replaced. And so we've talked and Kill Devil Hills is in the very, very, very preliminary stage, sort of on the thinking about stage of replacing their fire station out there with a fire station and a police station combined, much as Kitty Hawk is doing, to get the presence out on the bypass. And so when we were looking at programming, how are we going to rebuild Station 1 on the Station 1 site, it's, as you look at that site, it would be very difficult to build a new building on that site and continue to operate Station 1, which is our major hub, at the same time because the site is so small. And we weren't really sure how we were going to do that. Kill Devil Hills, that baseball field you see at the back there, they've just gotten a grant. They're doing construction work there to turn it into a park and do some things on that. So, that's not available. And so there's just a small amount of land there that we can do that on. And we don't even own it. Kill Devil Hills owns the site where our building is and allow us to use it and have allowed us to use it for a while. And so the thought came is, could we maybe buy the Mako Mike's property? Would it be possible for us to buy that property? That would give us a whole lot of highway frontage there. It would give us and Kill Devil Hills, if we could do something together, of a large site to do an EMS, fire, and police station with all the parking and the amenities and the things that we need and the things that they need. I don't really know how far they are in terms of whether they even know how many square feet they want or whether they've gotten that far or not yet. But we're at a point where, as we're doing this, we've got to make some decisions. And so I went through and tried to come up with, as best I could, a rough cost estimate if we were going to do something there. And you can see on that spreadsheet I did on the front, if you take, I have an appraisal. I got a hold of a copy of an appraisal on the Mako Mike property, and it appraises at about 2.2, almost $2.3 million is what, there's an MAI appraisal that says that. I haven't had Hosey look at it yet to see if he agrees that's a good value, but that's what the MAI says, and it's pretty current. The appraisal included $140,000 of fixtures and furniture and equipment and all that. We don't want that, and presumably if we were to buy this, then they would sell that stuff out. So that's a deduct that gets it down to like 2.1 million. In the past, when we've bought properties from people in the community, then they've often done one of those tax deals where they donate a portion of the sales price. And there's a formula that they use. They can figure out what that is that allows them in their tax bracket to donate a certain amount to us, where their net dollars in their pocket at the end of the deal doesn't change any. So rather than paying the dollars in taxes, they give it as donations and it nets out, and they net the same amount of money. And so for the seller, it's a sort of no harm, no foul. For us, it's a savings. And I just used randomly 25%. That might be too high, it might be too low, but that's what I picked because I don't really know enough to know what it would be, and without some accounting who's familiar with the Mako Mike's books and things, I don't know how all that would work. But assuming that you could do that, then there's another $536,000 deduct, which makes the purchase price of the property about 1.6. If you did a 50-50 split with Kill Devil Hills, then you can get into that property for about $800,000. And so if you use the land cost of $800,000, I did the same thing with cost construction estimates that I just did with Kill Devil Hills, with Kitty Hawk. And at the high, the $250 a square foot, that's about a $3.75 million construction cost. You add that to the 800, so we're at about $4.5 million to get into Kill Devil Hills.
What all is included in the 15,000 square feet gross construction area?
So what I did in that, and you don't have it with you, I'm sure, but I went into our facilities assessment that Oakley Collier did. And in that, he did two things. He did a building. He said if you needed let me get to the right page. If you wanted to do it, he's got a space programming summary for a typical EMS facility. And if you needed a 3-crew station with 4 double bays, that's the one I used, then he's got a list. You need 375 square feet of offices, and you need a vehicle bay of 5,440 square feet. And when you get home, if you look in your facilities EMS book, it's in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went on down the line, and there's about 10,000 square feet of space you need for that. If you go further into his thing on the next page, he's also got programming where you have an EMS Operations Headquarters. And when you look at that and you start talking about the director's office and bookkeeping office and some of these other spaces that you need, uniform storage, training rooms, there's another 4,900 square feet that are associated with that type of use. And I put those together to start with. And then I went back to Jenny and I said, Jenny, I didn't look at the headquarters use. I said, look at the space programming for a 3-crew station and go through it with me and tell me what we need to add to that to make that work. And so she and I did one, and when we got to the end, we got to about 15,000 square foot too. So it's kind of been vetted 2 ways, and that seems to be close to right without actually trying to design it on paper.
And what size again were the 4 vehicle bays?
4 vehicle bays were 5,400 square feet, 5,440.
Right, so just over a third would essentially be the open garage
space.
bay. See, what I'm doing here is I'm saying, if I'm doing 15,000 square feet of intricate construction versus I'm gonna put a pad, a high roof, and kind of a warehouse, it might be a different cost than building out, the HHS, Dare County Health and Human Services building, or the COA.
Correct.
It would be different for just that big open building. So I'm thinking there may be a little bit of economy in that part of the construction.
There is.
Well, you're optimistic.
Well,
It's
there's
true, hope springs eternal, Mr. Chairman. I'm hoping.
I mean, that's why we're using $250 a foot and not $400 a foot.
Touche, I take it.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it's good.
Since you've dug so deep into that, did our consultants, based on that 15 million total for all EMS, did they break it out? They didn't break it out, so I was trying to figure out how that 4.5 million is going to compare to that 15 million.
It's
You
not.
follow what I'm saying?
My opinion, and I think Dave agrees with me, and I'll let Dave chime in just a second. He's on the phone, but we probably need to get Oakley Collier to come back and vet the 2017 report with some 2021 numbers, because in his report, he had $12 million. In our CIP, we all knew when we did the CIP last year that $12 million wasn't enough. And we bumped it up to 15. And I don't think 15 is enough, to tell you the truth.
Well, if there's 17 numbers, yeah.
Yeah, and so we probably need to get that updated. But for the purpose of these 2 programs, then yeah, we would, if we took 4.5 and 5 million, just let's call it 6 million for both projects out of that, then yeah, we got 9 million left in it, so we can afford to do it. What we would wind up doing if we didn't change that $15 million number would be slower on the back end in some of the remodels and some of the painting, and or we do that as we went out of cash flow or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it would change what we do. And the other thing in that report is he just included remodel, refurbish, rebuild. He didn't include any land costs in any of that, and so he would assume we didn't have to buy any land, and depending on what we decide to do where, that might not be. I've been through it. I think we might be able to get there without buying any land, but that's going to require some cooperation. Say, like in Rodanthe, we've got an inadequate EMS station that's attached to a building that's part of the fire and rescue there, but they have some land, and so we haven't talked to them about this, but theoretically we could build a building there to rebuild it and get it right and provide them with the same storage space that they now have and get into that cheaper than if we had to go buy a site somewhere and then build a station on it.
What happens to the site that we're on today in Kill Devil Hills where EMS building station 1 is?
So I haven't, again, that's Kill Devil Hills' property. So once we're out of it, it's theirs.
But in the context of this discussion, to us, it's worth zero.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now, I say that. I have not talked to Kill Devil Hills, and I don't know what they have in mind and whether they want their property back or how they would want to do that. But if we were allowed to keep it, it has value to us. What I would be thinking then is we've been struggling for years, and we've talked about it a bunch of times, trying to figure out storage space. And so since I don't have to have people in there, and if we could button it up where it's waterproof, then for some minimal amount of money, we could get a pretty large storage facility. We could gut the inside and have a place to put things that need to be out of the weather in the county or store files or boxes or whatever we have that we have a critical need for right now. So, but that would be subject to some discussion with Kill Devil Hills. And again, they may prefer to get their property back to use it for something else. And I just don't know the answer to that.
Does Kill Devil Hills, to your knowledge, do they care at all what we do with that EMS station as far as the acquisition, the building construction that we're talking about here? Do you know if they have any interest in us doing that? I mean, in Kitty Hawk, clearly we have a good synergy between us that motivates both parties.
I have talked to the manager in Kill Devil Hills, and Kill Devil Hills has talked as a board about doing what I described. They're way in the infancy. It's not on their capital improvement plan yet. I mean, they haven't programmed it. They haven't done that. But they are interested, and she understands, and I think they understand that it makes some sense for us to do it together, if for no other reason for them.
Just for the land cost.
It'll help them with the land cost. And so they're, at the manager level, they're willing to talk, they're willing to do, how quickly they're willing to move, I don't know. If we're going to do something with the Mako Mike site, we've got to work through all that. If he's going to sell it, then, has he got anybody else that wanted to buy it if he's going in that direction, and how quickly do we have to move, and all those kind of things will determine some of that. And so,
and once again, the park that we see the baseball field on the aerial, that is just open green space.
it is, but remember, we approved at meeting before last, tourism board grant to them to do park improvements.
They're getting
there.
ready to do some
They're doing
improvements.
some stuff on that site, on that baseball field site. They're getting ready to put a public park facility there. So that's
Right.
not available.
And the wooded area south of our Station 1, all covered in trees.
There used to be a radio tower there, and there's a little building on it now. We don't use it, so I don't know what it's used for now, but
Yeah,
It's
the only thing
there.
I'm questioning is if that land was at all available. It doesn't give us frontage, of course, but it gives us quite a bit of space south of the current Station 1 that could potentially come into play here and
yep.
might be a bit more economical. I don't know.
Well, it saves $800,000 by my calculations, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm looking again at the aerial of their current fire. Is that fire and police, KDH?
No,
That's fire. No, that's just fire.
that's just
right now.
fire.
And that is, in their opinion, that is not an adequate facility, because I've driven by it many times and often thought, well, it looks like a nice facility.
It's got some age on it,
It's
quite a bit of age.
I don't know. You're asking me questions I don't
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
know that they are interested in doing a fire and police combination facility out on the bypass.
Right.
And I know that they're interested in doing something with the Mako Mike property that would make it easy for both of us to do something out on the
Okay.
bypass. Right?
That
That's just-
building goes back to the early 60s. They've done some renovations since then, but that building goes back to the early 60s.
Sounds like knowledge of a former KDH commissioner.
Yep.
Well, and I'm guessing, and they haven't told me this, and I don't know it, but I'm guessing that building was built, originally, it was built as town hall.
Town hall.
And the boardroom was in the back of that building.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we had volunteer fire departments. And so there were no bunk rooms and nobody slept there and you didn't have to feed and you didn't have to do that. And now they've got paid firemen. I'm guessing
They renovated
they
it
renovated it.
and put living spaces.
And
in
it's
there.
not ideal probably for the number of people that they now need and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, here's my economic hat coming on again. If we shared in the land acquisition in Kill Devil Hills, and they were to use the new site that we're acquiring for a fire EMS station, and the existing structure was refurbished and taken over for an EMS station. Now, in other words, I'm looking at the area, I'm thinking, we're gonna see EMS Station 1 either continue as some sort of a remodeled storage unit or demolished. And the existing fire, the reason I asked it was the existing fire station presumably is also gonna get demolished.
Well, how we would share in the facility, no one's gotten that far. They don't even know how many square feet they need or that. They are way preliminary to us. So what we know is we need 15,000 square feet of something, whether it's an
Yes.
old building, a new building or whatever. And,
Right.
and for us to have 15,000 square feet, we got to buy it, either buy it or build it or whatever. And so
Right.
that would be subject to whatever deal we made,
Mm-hmm.
with Kill Devil Hills, assuming Kill Devil Hills wants to do this. Really what I'm here to do is to try to see, are we headed this way so that we can start planning, we can get Oakley Collier to come back in and update this plan that we have with some current numbers. We can tell Kitty Hawk, yes, we're going to move in this direction, and we can get the ball rolling with Kill Devil Hills and then have some conversations maybe with Mako Mike's folks and see if any of this will work in Kill Devil Hills. If you were to tell me, no, it's too expensive, no, we don't want to do that, no, we're going to go a different direction, then I need to know that. I don't know that we have a ton of options because absent that, you're back where you were, Commissioner Ross. We either got to figure out how we're going to do whatever we're going to do. Can we get a 15,000 square foot building on the back of that site where our current thing is would fit and allow us to continue to operate? If not, are we going to buy some land somewhere else, go it on our own,
Right.
buy this land on our own and go along without Kill Devil Hills? Or, or try to come up with some temporary plan to run Station 1 from somewhere else that I don't know where or how, but figure it out. And as we rebuild Station 1, 2. So it's time for us to decide what we're doing. If we're going to go new, then we need to figure it out. And that's what I'm bringing to you.
I think
Have
this is one of those deals where, I mean, and we've looked at these before over the past few years in different situations. But it seems to me this is one of those things where we're going to either do it now at X amount, or we're going to kick it down the road and it's going to cost X plus.
Yep.
I mean,
Well, you've already seen what escalation in all of our facilities from when we
Exactly.
started talking about it, having the conversation we're having now till the time that we got bids. We're talking about millions of dollars of difference in these larger projects.
if these two projects come together, Bob, you're looking at about 5.1 million at the numbers that
I was,
that
in
you
my
got.
head, I was just using 6
Yeah.
just to have a
Well,
round number.
yeah, I'm saying, but I mean, if you add the two numbers up, the two estimates, that's about what you come to.
Right.
And a projection of doing a greenfield type deal for Kitty Hawk in fact, KDH is going to be significantly higher than that with land costs and everything else.
Well,
piled
even if
into
you
it.
can find the land.
If you
That's
can
the
find it.
problem, is
Well,
trying to find
That
it.
this is prime location because it fronts 158.
Right.
It's perfect from
Quick
from that aspect.
ingress, egress, in and out of there.
So, I mean, it's when.
I just think it
pay
makes
more
sense.
later.
I think it makes sense to move with Kitty
Yeah,
Hawk and,
I would explore that.
and certainly not put the pressure, but work with KDH to see if we can cut a deal. I think they would be very receptive because, when I was on their board at the time, we wanted a southern station fire station for KDH and a northern station for Nags Head at 8th Street. And we had that property and it's still there. And we partnered with Nags Head to build a station, man it equally, 50-50, but their Nags Head's beach nourishment was such a critical issue then, they had to put the station on hold and move forward with beach nourishment. So I know, I really believe Kill Devil Hills, I mean, it's in the best interest of both of us to partner. To make
Bobby,
it happen.
just one other question about, and this is way early for Kill Devil Hills, maybe not quite as early for Kitty Hawk. But in terms of doing the actual bidding and building for these things, we've just gone through a number of construction projects with a number of architects, builders, the whole 9 yards. Would we, mainly you, be able to work as a partner with the towns to help in the selection of architects, of builders, of whatever, to maybe find some savings there?
Common room.
I think in Kitty Hawk, they're on the way. They'll do an RFQ for an architect and they'll do it. And we're going to sort of be a tenant in their building, if you will, because they own the land already. They're going to build their fire station and their police station, and the things they're going to do with us or without us. And so we're just tagging along onto a project. And so all they're looking for us is if we want in, then pay our share and get in. And so other than the programming of our share, like the space, how many rooms do we need? How much space do we need for trucks? All that stuff to help program it, then we probably won't be a player in the design or the color or the, all those kind of things. Those will all be done by the town because they're going to have most of the money in it because they're going to have
But if
more than half of the whole facility and they own the land.
I guess part of the question then is that if we tell them what we want in the EMS portion of it, and we want it laid out in such and such a
Yes.
fashion,
They'll work with us on that. As long as we pay for any costs that we create, I'm sure they'll work with us on that. Jenny's kind of already done that, so we're already there on that.
Okay.
And I'm sure we can, if we want it to be painted white or blue or green, we can have them paint our rooms whatever color we want them. They don't
Yeah,
care.
Right.
this document seems to have that captured for Kitty Hawk.
Yeah, right.
okay,
So I think we're good.
So I
there,
think
Mark.
we're good there. And I'll just tell you, our relationships with the towns, all the towns, but Kill Devil Hills and Kitty Hawk too, are excellent. And I'm certain that they're going to talk to us. I'm certain that we'll, be involved in, and I'm certain that we're willing to help or not help, however we
Right.
need to do. And I think when we start working with Kill Devil Hills, because we're building a new building and because we're sharing in the cost of land, and we're a little bit different than we are in Kitty Hawk, and I'm sure they'll work with us collaboratively there too, much as we did with our COA project when we brought the towns in and
Right.
COA, we all worked together and we didn't have any substantial issues, and there won't be any issues with us in Kill Devil Hills or Kitty Hawk either. So those will be fine. They're good to work with, and we're all after the same thing. So
what direction do you need from us?
well, let me make sure I haven't left something out that you need to know from Dave. Dave, anything else you need to add?
Just Chairman Woodard had asked before about the detailed Oakley Collier report. They have detail on their pages 18 and 19, and they had included 2.6 million for a new Kiddo Hills station and 1.15 for operations. So that's the same 3,750,000 number that Bobby came up with. And then that totaled, like Bobby said, 12.5 million for the Oakley Collier report without land. And Bobby and I just for the CIP rounded it up to 15 million. So, and then just on the rest of it, it's just timing for the CIP, how to work it in, and whether it's going to be cash or debt service. And as long as we can get through 22 and 23, I mean, there's different things we can look at and different options we can take, even if we did like a construction bridge loan, something like that. So, we'll make it work somehow. We'll figure it out.
So Dave, if the CIP recommended moving forward with these two projects, and then we went to the board on Monday and got them to approve the CIP recommendation, if we had to move a year sooner than 23, there's a way we could figure out how to do that on the numbers we just talked about. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, Joe Piper Sandler, Joe and I we'd get it figured out.
Okay,
So Dave, what we have in our CIP now, we don't have to push anything down the road.
I'd say the worst case would be if you had to come up with a cash contribution to Kitty Hawk in fiscal 22, then something else would have to wait.
So in Kitty Hawk, we don't know what they're doing, how they're paying for it yet. If they decide to do a pay-go and just pay their whole share cash, we can't borrow on that property because we don't own it. And so our share would have to be cash too. And so we'd have to come up with that $550,000 cash to pay our share up front. And that's what he's talking about right then. That could cause us to move $550,000 of something further down the road to generate that cash that we need then. If Kitty Hawk chooses to finance it and they finance the whole project, then we could do much as we do with beach nourishment. We could contribute annually to our share of their debt service, and that would solve our cash problem. And we could probably do that without having to push something down the road. Did I say that right, Dave?
Yeah. So we could definitely do that.
We got $500,000 in there for C&D landfill, cell 6. How?
That might be where we.
That might be where we get it, push it down the road.
Maybe. I haven't gotten that far yet, but because I don't know how to plan it without knowing what.
Gotcha.
And they don't know how to plan it until I tell them whether we're in or out not. So my intention would be, if you all said, yeah, this is the direction to go, would be to go to the board on Monday under my agenda and ask them to approve what we've just gone through. And then I would go back to Kitty Hawk and tell them we're in, and tell them what our preference would be, how they do it, but ultimately they can make those decisions at their board level.
Well, worst case scenario, we might, that C&D landfill and then the core network replacement for IT.
Well, what we would need to do is sit down with whoever we're talking about pushing it back and saying, okay, what happens if we do, what are the ramifications if we move the C&D landfill back here? What are the ramifications if we move the core back? And
I know we've already moved
I think we're premature to start trying to figure that out now.
And what I meant was cash basis, that something that we would otherwise program in 2022 would have to be moved.
So we might not buy 2 garbage trucks in order to afford to do this. We might postpone. Is that right, Dave?
No, garbage trucks or something else. That's just a good example, but wrong source.
Right.
Gotcha.
Some other pay-go item that's in our capital improvement plan, right, Dave?
Right.
Okay. Any other questions about any of this?
My thinking on it was, it sounds like the struggling with a little dry cough here. It seems like the Kitty Hawk plan is a very good one. And same with KDH. We could look at the land commitment on a KDH deal and then afterwards figure out the best deployment of structures and remodels and so forth.
Right, and the plan in Philadelphia Hills has got to come together because we've got multiple players that have different goals and different timing. And I don't know, we may have to, if we can get him to sell the land, we may have to buy the land to tie it up until Kill Devil Hills is ready.
Right.
And then we got to come back and work a deal with Kill Devil Hills. And so, or Kill Devil Hills might get ready and we buy it together. All that stuff is yet to be seen, and we've got to figure that out. And because we're dealing with, again, two other entities, both the seller and Kill Devil Hills, who have different goals, different timings, and those kinds of things, I can't tell you yet when we're going to need what, but we can't get started if we don't get started.
Right.
Bobby, that brings up an interest, what you just said kind of brings up an option. And that is if we were to had to buy the Mako Mike property, what happens if we just buy the Mako Mike property and put the
If we just did it and built our own station, that's another $800,000. I mean, because we're putting the whole cost. The difference in us doing it alone and us doing it with Kill Devil Hills is $800,000.
It's 800.
Almost $1 million. Okay, gotcha.
Well, the other option there is,
And it doesn't offer any additional benefit in essence, or does it?
Well, I mean, it means we own it. It means it's ours. It means we control it. It means, we don't have a partner, and Kill Devil Hills would be a good, fine partner. We're not going to have issues with Kill Devil Hills, but,
of course, that might not necessarily mean that, we go it alone and get it so that we tie it up and we have it. That doesn't mean that they won't partner with us down the road and give us half the cost of that when they're ready.
I think some things have got to happen for them. Not got to happen. That sounds like it's fortuitous. They've got some things they need to do and make happen before they're ready to move on this project. And I don't know the timing of those things. I know some of what they are. I really don't want to share Kill Devil Hills business because if they haven't shared it publicly yet.
Right.
But there are some things they need to do on their end to make this happen if they're going to go in that direction. And so there are going to be some timing issues with that. And then similarly, I don't know how those timing issues jibe with
Well, let me
whatever
ask you
the
this.
property's plans are.
Let me ask you this. We know the owner of the property wants to sell,
Well,
correct?
we have to approach the owner of the property and see if he's going to sell, yes.
Yeah.
And preliminarily, we talked and he said, well, we can talk. And so that's where we are.
And my recollection is sooner rather than later. So why couldn't we have some conversation with KDH and the owner of the property as well and say, hey, the county will buy it, but KDH, we know you're not ready yet. Are you willing to still partner with us down the road when you are ready, that you will pay us half of the cost of the land?
Well, I think that could happen. I think one thing that I would tell you is if we were to decide to go in that direction, we need to be prepared possibly to go it alone. And that's not anything disparaging or anything about Kill Devil Hills, but Kill Devil Hills, as you know, and Nags Head were going to do that project together on 8th Street.
Right.
And they were pretty far along in the planning and all that. And some things happened and they couldn't do it. And nobody was wrong, nobody was right, but it changed the plan.
Right.
And so if we buy this property on our own with the idea and the assurances, if you will, that Kill Devil Hills is going to go forward, then that assumes nothing's going to happen. I mean, if they have I'll just use the example you use, a huge beach nourishment problem, and all of a sudden the model doesn't cover their costs and they're now in a dilemma, where are they going to get the money from? They're then not going to come in and spend $1 million on a project that they need to do something that's a higher priority with, and then we're going to be there. So I would say if we decide to do that, we need to go in, understand they may be with us, but being prepared to go our own way. If we had
I
to.
agree.
Understand. That makes sense.
I think
But
acquiring the property.
I just think, I just think it's an opportunity for us to get a piece of property that has ingress, egress right off of the highway. And I can tell you right now, land is scarce. I mean,
Man like that is.
and no telling what it would cost to try to find a piece of property that we could build a station on.
Yeah,
So,
I'm kind of like that, but I think irrespective of how the talks go and whether there's some uncertainty with regard to how KDH is going to or not move forward, if we've got that property in our pocket, you know, even if it means having to continue like we're doing now and just do this project when we can, at least we got a place to, we
right,
got a place to, we
right.
got an ideal place to put it.
Just one last thing, just because I need to tell you, and you need to have it in the back of your mind. It has nothing to do with the CIP, but the Kitty Hawk station would be a new station. So we're not moving current assets or current people into that station. So if we did the Kitty Hawk station, we got to buy trucks, we got to have crew, and you're looking probably $1 million in your general fund to cover the costs and expenses of that station. So that'll be an add on the general fund side whenever we get there, just so you know.
On Kitty Hawk?
At Kitty Hawk, yeah.
And we're gonna share $500,000 commitment and then $1 million on top of it?
Well, that's your operating, because you're going to have to buy you have to, not annually, but you have to buy a new ambulance to go in the station. You're going to have to equip the station, and you're going to have you have 4 shifts, so that's about 10 people.
So this will be an increment to our existing infrastructure. It's not a replacement.
Correct.
That's what we're
Right.
saying.
This
Okay.
is
All right, I got you. I get it.
Let me go back to
Kill
Dave.
Hills is a replacement, and there's no change
Yeah,
there.
you're right. I understand. Thank you, Bob.
Let me go back to Dave. We go the property in KDH on our own. And now we're talking 1.6. I yield to you, financing wise.
Well, it would just depend on the timing. I mean, since it's land and construction, we still have to go to the LTC for approval, but we can, there's stuff I can do with Joe with private placements that, we can make it work. And again, I'm saying that by the coverage numbers you're seeing in the capital investment fund, we're almost through this year. We get through 22, and then it gets a lot easier to do. So,
We've got 15 million programmed. The net cost of all this roughly is 6 million. If we went to the land
well,
and call it 7 million. And so if you take it out of that 15, then to the extent that 8 isn't enough to do everything else in the plan, then you've basically made a decision to reprioritize what's in this, and you'll spend whatever you got in the priority that you need to in your facilities plan. And if there are other things that still need to be done that are a higher priority than something else in our facility, in our overall CIP, then we'll move it around. But in terms of at least having the cash up front to do the top 2 priorities, we already got that program. It's just timing of when we do it and how Dave structures it.
let me say that a different way. I mean, what Bobby said is exactly right. And right now it's just making the cash flow work, and there's things we can do to make the cash flow work. Say, for example, if you did a year of interest only, yeah, you've got interest costs for a year, but right now those costs aren't very much. So, and there's different options we can work into the contracts as far as, when principal is due, when it's prepayable. Some of those come at an interest cost, but again, that's not a lot of a cost right now.
And who knows, we may be able to negotiate time if Kill Devil Hills needs time and the seller is willing to wait, we may be able to obligate ourselves and get the time from the seller. I mean, who knows? We're not that far yet. I don't know the answer to any of that stuff yet. But the long and the short is, we believe we can do this out of the CIP without messing it up too much.
How about we approach it this way? If we don't know how long KDH is along, how about we approach the owner and ask the owner if he'll give us right of first refusal?
We could.
We could do all kinds, yeah.
We can do all kinds of things. I
Yeah.
think I need to talk to the owner and I need to talk to Kill Devil Hills.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I can't make a deal without coming back to you anyway. So I need to get permission that, yeah, we're headed this way in some fashion. Go figure out what you can do, Bobby, and come back to us and then we'll talk about it. That might be an option. I don't know. And then, you know, how quickly do we want to move? Maybe we've got some incentives to move quickly to get out of Station 1 and get out of that old building. And so we may not want to wait as
Right.
long as they want to wait. So those are all things we've got to decide. But until I can know that this is the direction we're headed and can start having some serious conversations with the other players, we're kind of stuck where we are. That's why we're here today.
Well, is it,
Just to proceed.
is it the consensus of you guys then that we move forward with Kitty Hawk and then we?
Yes, for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Kill Devil Hills has a great deal of interest for me, and I would say, yes, we should proceed with investigations and discussions to bring back more concrete structure to it, but the plan and the general project has merit. Yeah.
Right.
So what I would do is I would come to the board and tell the board on Monday that the Capital Improvement Committee is recommending that we move forward with Kitty Hawk.
Yes.
And that we understand Kill Devil Hills and we're authorizing the county manager to move forward with that project subject to the terms of whatever deal he brings back to us. So if I can't make a deal that we can live with, we won't do it. Is that right?
Sounds right to
Yeah,
me.
sounds right.
Okay. Okay. And Dave, is there anything else that we need to talk about along these lines?
No.
All right, so that's all that I need, Mr. Chairman, unless you all have other questions.
Yeah, no, unless Commissioner Ross, the vice chair, has any other questions.
No, sir.
Do we need a motion
Yes, sir, please.
you want to make that motion, one of you guys?
So moved.
Okay, it's motion by the vice chair and it's seconded by Commissioner Ross. Those in favor of this, moving forward with this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose like sign. Okay, motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Ross to adjourn. It's been seconded by the vice chair. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks.